Are natural disasters God's judgment or just nature? If a major earthquake happens tomorrow, someone will say it's climate change. Another will say it's God's judgment. But what if both groups are asking the wrong first questions? Come along with me and let's reason together. Have you noticed the devastations happening around the world? The United States of America currently has the highest number and most critical of these natural disasters with a whopping 1,166. Every time disaster strikes, a massive earthquake, a devastating flood, a hurricane destroying an entire community or communities, wildfires consuming thousands of acres, a pandemic spreading across continents, the same question echoes across the world. Immediately people begin asking, is this God's judgment? Others respond just as quickly, no, it's simply science. But what if the answer isn't as simple as choosing one side? Today, let's explore what the Bible actually says. Natural hazards are not uniquely modern phenomena. I hope you agree on that. You know, a verse that comes to mind lately is one of my favorite books, Ecclesiastes. The verse says there's nothing new under the sun. And honestly, every time I watch the news, I think about that verse. There's really nothing new under the sun, is there? If you've seen or heard anything new, never been done or heard of before, do let me know. That statement becomes surprisingly relevant when we look at today's headlines. Earthquakes, yes, the Bible records them. Floods, there are throughout Scripture. Famines, repeatedly. Locust invasions, an entire book describes them. Remember Pharaoh and Moses, let my people go? Droughts, storms, disease outbreaks, violent winds, darkness, hail, wildfires. Wildfires were almost expected every year. When I lived in California, there was never a year without one or two happening in one city or the other. Even seas roaring with unusual power. People, if it's happening now, it's happened before in the Bible. And you heard that right. The people of the Bible lived in a world affected by many of the same natural hazards we experience today. So perhaps the question isn't whether disasters are new. We know they are not. The deeper question is, why do they happen? The Bible gives us several ways to think about this. First, Scripture teaches that creation itself has been affected by humanity's fall into sin. Paul writes in Romans that creation is groaning. In other words, we don't live in Eden anymore. But we can return to living in Eden again, the way God orchestrated it in the beginning. For now, however, we live in a broken world. That means earthquakes still occur because the earth is geologically active. I vividly remember my first experience of earthquakes. We were in Las Vegas, and I thought, oh my, this is cool. This bed rocks the massages want. My ex was like, rock? We gotta get out of here. It's an earthquake. I still laugh at myself every time I remember that. Moving on. Viruses spread, droughts happen, storms form, and people accept it as the norm. Being new in Arizona now and having experienced a dust storm made me wonder if anything can be done to prevent these natural hazards. I also have gotten a bigger appreciation of just how wonderful, powerful our God is with His creation. Let's not forget that He created us all and these hazards for His purpose. These realities are part of life in a creation awaiting restoration. But then we encounter another truth. Sometimes God used natural events intentionally. Remember the flood in Noah's day? The plagues of Egypt, also Pharaoh? The drought during Elijah's ministry? The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah? In those cases, Scripture clearly tells us these events carried divine purpose. Again, everything was created for God's purpose. Notice something important? We don't have to guess. God revealed it. That distinction matters. But many people today rush to declare that every hurricane, every earthquake, every wildfire is God's judgment on a particular city or race or nation. Yet Jesus himself cautioned against that kind of conclusion or assumption. In Luke 13, people told him about a terrible tragedy, a tower that had collapsed and killed 18 people. Jesus asked, "Do you think they were worse sinners than everyone else?" Nada. His answer was no. Instead of assigning blame, he called everyone to examine their own lives. That changes the conversation, my friend. Disasters, therefore, shall make us all humble and not judgmental. Now let's bring science into the discussion. I am not a scientist, but I am intrigued by science. I believe that God gives scientists their knowledge. For of the scientists themselves, they can do nothing. Some assume science and faith must compete. But do they? Or should they? Nah. Suppose warmer ocean temperatures contribute to a stronger hurricane. Science investigates how that happened. Meteorologists study wind patterns, ocean temperatures, and atmospheric pressure. That is valuable knowledge. Are they always right? Nah. But science answers the question, how? Faith, on the other hand, often asks another question. What does this mean? Those are different questions, and they don't necessarily contradict each other. Are the prophets always right? Nah. For even Scripture tells us that we know and prophesy in part. If God created an orderly universe, then studying its patterns is part of understanding His creation. Likewise, if people cut down forests, build in flood prone areas, or ignore wise stewardship, those choices can increase the impact of natural hazards. People, cause, and effects are real. The Bible recognizes this principle repeatedly. We reap what we sow. You can sow apples and reap oranges now. Wise choices often reduce harm, logically. Foolish choices can multiply it, logically. So, where does that leave us? Perhaps with a more balanced perspective. Some disasters result from the ordinary processes of a fallen creation. Some are made worse by human decisions. And God remains sovereign over all of it. He's a sovereign God. What we should avoid is claiming certainty where Scripture has not spoken. The prophets of the Bible didn't speculate. They declared what God had revealed. Without that revelation, humility is wiser than certainty. Jesus also spoke about earthquakes, famines, pestilences, and fearful events before his return. Read Matthew 24, verses 6 to 8. But notice what he did not tell his followers to do. Jesus didn't tell them to predict dates. He didn't tell them to accuse victims. Instead, he called his people to stay watchful, faithful, and ready. Every generation has wondered if it was living in the last days. Every generation has faced disasters. Our responsibility is not to panic, it is to remain faithful. We remain faithful till the end. So the next time you hear someone confidently declare, this disaster proves God is judging those people or that nation, or someone else insists it's only science, nothing more. Remember that the Bible offers a richer perspective. Science can explain mechanisms. Scripture provides meaning and moral direction. One explores the processes of creation. The other points us to the Creator. Perhaps the greatest lesson isn't found in identifying the exact cause of every disaster. Perhaps it is remembering just how fragile life truly is. Let's ponder on that for a second. And I'll repeat it for it to sink in. Perhaps the greatest lesson isn't found in identifying the exact cause of every disaster. Perhaps it is remembering just how fragile life truly is. Disasters remind us that our security is never found in wealth. It's never should be found in technology or AI or in our governments or even nature itself. Our hope ultimately rests on one thing and one thing alone: God. And the Bible ends not with a broken creation, but with a promise of a new heaven and a new earth, where sorrow, death, and suffering are no more. Until then, my people, may every headline remind us not simply to ask, what caused this, but also, How shall I live today? For tomorrow is not guaranteed. If this conversation challenged or encouraged you, share it with someone who enjoys thoughtful discussions about faith and our world. Today's conversation is about science and faith as it relates to natural disasters. What will the next weeks be? Like, share, comment, and subscribe to find out. I'd love to hear from you. Do you think natural disasters are best understood through science, theology, or a combination of both? Let's continue the conversation respectfully in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Some assume science and faith must compete. But do they? Or should they? Nah. Suppose warmer ocean temperatures contribute to a stronger hurricane. Science investigates how that happened. Meteorologists study wind patterns, ocean temperatures, and atmospheric pressure. That is valuable knowledge. Are they always right? Nah. But science answers the question, how? Faith, on the other hand, often asks another question. What does this mean? Those are different questions, and they don't necessarily contradict each other. Are the prophets always right? Nah. For even scripture tells us that we know and prophesy in part. If God created an orderly universe, then studying